I'm going to tell you something that happened last month, and honestly, I'm still processing it, but I need to get this out there because keeping it inside is making me crazy in a different way than my family already has for 3 decades. Sunday lunch at the family house, the one on Maple Street with the blue shutters that everyone in the neighborhood knows. I showed up at noon like always, because missing Sunday lunch meant 2 weeks of guilt trips and passive-aggressive text messages from Mom about how some families actually value spending time together. I was wearing my usual jeans and a polo shirt. And yeah, my sneakers were old Nikes with the sole starting to separate on one side, but they were clean and they worked fine for walking. I need to back up. My family has always had this thing about me. Dad, Ray, runs a small consulting business. Mom, Teresa, used to teach elementary school before she retired, and my brother Clayton works in sales for some tech company and makes decent money. I'm the one who went to community college instead of a 4-year university. I'm the one who works in IT support instead of having a fancy title. I'm the one who's still single at 31 while Clayton got married at 28 to Nadia, who works in marketing, and they live in a nice apartment downtown. But here's what they don't know, and what I've been very careful about for the past 5 years. They think I'm barely scraping by. They think I'm 1 bad month away from asking them for money. They see my old car and my worn shoes and they assume I'm failing at life, just like they've always expected me to. The Sunday lunch started normal enough. Mom had made pot roast and Clayton showed up with Nadia, and they were talking about some vacation they were planning to the Bahamas. I sat down at my usual spot at the table, and Dad was already drinking his second beer and had that look on his face that meant he was in a mood. Then he slammed his hand on the table hard enough that the silverware jumped, and everyone went quiet. He stood up and announced that he had a new family tradition to propose. He wanted us to go around the table and everyone had to say one thing they were grateful for, and one thing that reminded them that life could always be worse. Mom started clapping before he even finished talking. Clayton grinned like he knew exactly where this was going. Dad pointed at me and said we should start with our walking cautionary tale right here. He said he wanted everyone to take a moment and thank God that they weren't me, because after 31 years of watching me fail at literally everything I touched, they needed to acknowledge how lucky they were. Mom actually laughed, that sharp little laugh she does when she's about to say something mean but wants it to sound like a joke. She said some kids are just born wrong, and you accept your cross to bear and you love them anyway, but you don't pretend they're something they're not. Clayton jumped in immediately. He asked if everyone remembered my big dreams. The way he said it made it sound like I'd wanted to be an astronaut or a movie star instead of just wanting to work with computers and maybe start my own business someday. He pointed at my shoes and said I couldn't even afford new ones. And look at those ratty things. Dad was recording on his phone now. He said this was going on YouTube as part of a new series about family honesty and teaching young people that participation trophies don't prepare you for real life. He said I was the perfect example of what happens when you don't apply yourself. Then Mom pulled out her phone and opened my dating profile. I don't know how she got access to it, but she had screenshots. She passed her phone around the table, and everyone looked at my photos and my bio where I'd written that I was optimistic about meeting someone genuine. Mom said it was sad, really still optimistic after all those rejections. She said she'd stopped expecting grandchildren from me years ago. Nadia looked uncomfortable, but she didn't say anything. Clayton told her this was just how our family showed love, through tough honesty. Dad made everyone take turns holding his phone and recording a short message for the roast video. Clayton went first and talked about how I used to say I was going to build my own tech company, and now I can't even keep a houseplant alive, based on the dead fern visible in my dating profile photos. Mom talked about how she used to make excuses for me to other parents, but eventually you have to accept reality. Dad did a whole speech about the importance of recognizing your limitations in life. I smiled through every single recording. I nodded when they asked if I was okay with this. I even laughed a few times when they made particularly harsh jokes. I helped Mom clear the table afterward, loaded the dishwasher while Clayton and Dad went to the living room to watch football. Mom squeezed my shoulder before I left and said she hoped I understood this was coming from a place of love. She said they just wanted me to have realistic expectations about life. I drove home to my apartment in the older part of town where rent is cheap and sat on my couch for about 2 hours just staring at the wall. People always ask why I didn't blow up or walk out or tell them off. The thing is, I've been waiting for something exactly like this for 5 years now. I've been hoping they'd push it this far, because I needed them to show me that nothing had changed, and nothing ever would change. See the family house on Maple Street with the blue shutters? I bought that house 5 years ago. They were 3 months behind on mortgage payments and facing foreclosure. Dad's business was having a rough year, and Clayton was still in his starter job making barely anything. They came to me desperate, and I had just gotten a significant promotion and had been saving aggressively for years. I paid off their remaining mortgage balance and bought the house outright. It's in my name. We signed a rental agreement where they would pay me monthly rent that was significantly below market rate, because they were family. They never paid a single month's rent. Not one. I documented every non-payment. I sent polite reminders for the first year. They ignored them or told me I was being petty about paperwork when they'd raised me and fed me for 18 years. I also gave Dad 3 separate business loans over the past 5 years, totaling about $60,000, all properly documented with signed agreements and repayment schedules. He's paid back maybe $2,000 total. Mom borrowed money for her sister Teresa's medical bills 2 years ago, $15,000 with a signed promissory note. Never saw a cent back. Clayton asked me to co-sign his car loan 3 years ago because his credit wasn't good enough. I co-signed. He stopped making payments 8 months ago, and I've been covering them while taking screenshots of every transaction. They all think I'm barely getting by because I still live in a small apartment and drive a 2015 Toyota and wear old clothes. They don't know I've been taking on freelance consulting work for the past 4 years building enterprise security systems. They don't know my actual bank balance or my investment accounts. They see what I let them see. Monday, I went to work like normal. Tuesday afternoon, I was at my desk when my phone started buzzing. 3 missed calls from Dad, 2 from Mom, 4 from Clayton. I let them go to voicemail. The first voicemail from Dad said I needed to call him back immediately because something was very wrong. His voice had this edge to it I'd never heard before. The second one from Mom said there was an emergency with the house accounts and they needed to talk to me right away. Clayton's messages got progressively more panicked. He said his bank accounts were frozen. He said a lawyer had contacted him. He said he didn't understand what was happening, but apparently I was involved somehow. Dad left another message saying all their accounts were showing legal holds. He said, "How is this even possible?" He said, "They're my family, and I need to call them back right now." Mom sent a text message in all caps. "Emergency, please answer. Something's very wrong." I sat at my desk and looked at my phone screen showing 17 missed calls and counting. I opened the email from my attorney confirming that all the documentation had been filed that morning. Eviction notice for non-payment of rent, formal demand letters for loan repayment with interest, lawsuit filed for the car loan defaults. My phone buzzed again, Dad calling for the 8th time. I watched it ring until it went to voicemail. Then I got up and went to get coffee from the break room because I had 3 more hours of work before I could go home and really start processing what I'd set in motion. And that's just the beginning. Welcome to Hidden Lies.